Okay, just touching off from the last video. So the script we want is actually called elements to objects. So yeah, it was in the list. And if you click and drag, if you click to create a new box, drag him in there, and then place it. Okay, great. And I'll just save that UI, save. Okay, and that'll allow us to, when we open the software, bring it in again in the future without having to load all of it again. So just to show you what this elements to objects does. So if we select this roof, for example, and we go elements to objects, it's going to ask us, well, what do we want to call it? What do we want to call the elements? We can just come over to the object in its modifier stack, and then modifier section here. And with it selected, with the roof selected, I'll just close it for a sec. So with the roof selected, you will see the name of it there. Okay, so we will just copy that. So if we, take that roof's name, select it, go Control-C, and then if we select it, and if we're running this detach, you can paste that in there and click detach, right? And then what you'll see is all these little segments of roof are now separate pieces. So I go Control-Z a couple of times, turn it back into one object. Now, if I right click on this and go isolate selection, we'll just have a look at this. So at the moment it's one object. We can see that all these pieces are one object. We come into the modifiers for this object, and we come down to this elements button. Basically, an element is an object that isn't physically attached to this element. So, the edge of this line is actually its own separate. This vertice and this edge, they're separate. So if you drag that up, it's not attached to this one. Whereas, for example, this piece here could be a separate element. But it's not. If I pick this edge and I drag it up, you'll see all of them come along for the ride because they're attached. Whereas if I detach this, click detach, if I detach that, detach by element, you can see it's still part of this object. But if I grab it and move it, it's not physically welded or attached by the edge or the vertices. So I hope that explains that. So we're going to end isolation here. So the reason I explain this is because we're going to be detaching and attaching a few things, or reattaching a few things. So when it comes to light maps for large objects, we'll go through this in more detail as we progress. But basically, certain objects are quite large, and a lot of light, if I isolate this for a second, this wall, for example, isolate this. This wall is very large. There's going to be light hitting it from outside, all in here, all on that outside. There's going to be light bulbs inside hitting the wall, on all these parts. And in terms of a light map resolution, that is going to be a bit of a struggle for lighting calculations. we'd have to make the resolution quite high. And the higher the resolution, the longer it's going to take us to bake. Now, I'll show you, and you will see that later on in Unreal Engine 4 when we actually bring it in. So, with something like this, what we're going to do, we're going to, what actually I would do, what we'll do first, is that's actually cladding. So there actually is separate internal walls. So I'm just going to run through the model a little bit with you. I'm going to turn everything on. Okay, so obviously this is the ground plane, the landscape here that the building is sitting on. This red one here. That will come in as a H4 landscape grass file, grass model, object rather. Okay. And if we look at the materials objects here, we've got them fairly well broken down into what they are. Ceilings, architraves, balustrades, parts of the bathroom, bulkheads, etc. Now, basically the biggest thing we've got to look at really is there geometry issues? So is there any clashing of geometry? The things that we can pick up anyway. Is there any clashing of geometry? Is the geometry too large in its current form? For example, this. Something like that. Maybe you would want to break up. Maybe. You would definitely, would need to break up that. That's pretty small. You might want to break that up. You would definitely want to break that up. So, if you think about the object in a physical world, the larger it is, you more you want to break that up. So we're going to look at breaking up objects and detaching them, geometry, and then we also want to look at optimization. But we'll look at this detaching first. So I'd like to detach this. I think we'll look at the cladding afterwards, because if we come down here, we've got doors, window. Oh, we will also be deleting the doors because we're putting them in ourselves. We'll be deleting parts of the doors. But if we come down to H4 walls internal, we turn that on. Now look at that. That is a bloody huge object. There's no way in hell a light map is going to work on that. There's, you turn on the. If I select this object and go into wireframe mode, go into black, so I can see it more clearly here. There is so many surfaces, so many areas where light is hitting it. So what we're going to try and do is break it up into about 20 pieces. Okay. So we'll cover that in the next video.